Drones have become the new normal as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned. And viewers, as missiles fall and there are borders that are blurring, Europe is now building something new. It's building an invincible shield. It's building something that is being stitched together by code and propellers. It's called the drone wall. Yes, there's a drone wall that Europe is coming out with. It's high-tech front line aimed at rewriting how the EU defends its skies. The plan is in motion, and let's tell you exactly how this is likely to come about. First and foremost, the drone talks that exist, what is really happening right now. We're going to come to why it matters, whether it will succeed or not, and whether this is the new age of the new warfare. We're going to come and cover all of that for you. But first, let's tell you what exactly is these drone wall talks that are currently happening. EU leaders have met in Copenhagen to talk about this, and the focus has been on Ukraine aid and ensuring that they have a concerted defense plan in motion. Why? Because there have been these repeated drone attacks that are coming, whether it was Denmark, whether it was several others. Poland has been scrambling its jets and nobody has been able to find a solution, which is why a concerted drone wall has come to light. The drone wall has actually got a signal, a go-ahead signal from these EU countries, which means they're going to pool in their resources, pool in their funds, and ensure that there's a concerted and a single drone wall. Whether it will be effective is something that we're going to leave the expert on the panel to tell us more on, but formal decisions are likely to take as early as just in a couple of weeks from now. That's how urgent this is for EU to move ahead on. Now, what exactly is this wall? As I said, first we talked about the politics of it, the decision making of it, but this is exactly the wall. What does it do? What is it hoping to achieve for EU? First and foremost, it's tech-based defense against Russia. It detects, tracks, intercepts hostile drones. As I said, there have been this massive drone warfare, swarms of drone coming in. It's alleged it's being used by Russia. They can't even pinpoint because a lot of this drone warfare allows a certain amount of plausible deniability, which is what this wall is likely to address. Next up, it covers NATO's vulnerable eastern flank. I spoke about the fact that Poland scrambled jets. I spoke about the fact that Denmark feels that its airports have been attacked by these drones that have come in. That's the eastern flank that needs to be protected more, which is where they're likely to fortify it. Includes jamming, spoofing, and signal disruption. They're trying to go the whole hog in terms of disarming whatever drones are coming on their eastern flank. And lastly, it's inspired by Ukraine's battlefield experience. When Ukraine really gave a blow to the chin as far as Russia is concerned, it was led by drones. And they are now looking to double up on that. Since then, Russia has also learnt its lessons. It got the Shahid drones from Iran, has doubled up on that. So this drone wall will be fresh lessons as far as the Ukraine-Russia war is concerned. Well, viewers, as Europe builds the drone wall to top hostile airspace incursions, a more urgent fault line actually emerges. Drones are no longer just support tools. They are actually now central players as far as combat is concerned. They're reshaping how wars are being fought from the ground up. And this report tells you just how crucial they are in today's warfare.
They are small, they are cheap, and they are becoming increasingly smart. Drones have transformed from simple recon devices into frontline systems capable of disrupting entire militaries. In conflict zones, from all the way in Eastern Europe to South Asia, they're changing the tempo and also the tactics of warfare. Only a few months ago, Ukraine's spider web operation used drones to strike deep into Russia, destroying strategic bombers at 4 air bases. All this with only improvised truck-launched UAVs. No jets, no pilots, just algorithms and plastic wings. Since Russia's invasion in 2022, drones have rapidly evolved. AI navigation, terrain mapping, and 3D printing now allows states and rebels alike to build and deploy strike systems at scale. and they are faster than traditional armies can adapt. India's Operation Sindoor marked a doctrinal shift, pairing drones with long-range weapons, a calibrated high-altitude response to terror threats. Meanwhile, in Myanmar, insurgents are using homemade UAVs to pierce better-equipped forces. Be it jamming-resistant comms or even swarming algorithms, the cutting edge in drone warfare is about smart, modular design that can adapt mid-conflict. And this flexibility gives smaller players a big advantage. Drones are no longer battlefield extras. They are reshaping military thinking, rewriting doctrines, and redrawing the line between conventional and asymmetric warfare.
We have with us Mr. Smit Shah joining me to talk more about the nature of warfare, which now has drones as a very central component of it. Sir, in your assessment, how significant have drones become in terms of fighting any modern war right now?
Hi, thank you for having me over. I think when we talk about drones, typically they are changing two dimensions. They are letting the person fighting the war go even farther away from the battlefield and then bringing significant disruption in a low-cost manner. So this was happening earlier without the drones, with very expensive weapons, where you saw missiles being used and rockets being used, where the tech inside the missiles and rockets was very complicated, disruptive, as well as the missile itself was costing very high. But then came drones, which are able to perform similar function. I will not say exactly the same, but the cost is significantly low. So that's the kind of disruption. With just a few $100s, you are able to put together a weapon, stay very far away from the battlefield, control it for even further, and then bring in significant damage. And damage not just for static installations, whether it is static or moving targets, whether it is people, building, vehicles, strategic installations, all of that is changing. And in fact, earlier they started with very low cost drones, which were put together in a couple of $100s. Now we are seeing the scale up of this in things like Shahid class drones and all as well, where the very large complicated drones are also becoming affordable fairly because of the increase in numbers and the increase in production.
Okay.
So
which brings me to ask you in terms of the India experience, the India view here. India has invested heavily in terms of its vision for being a major player in drone warfare. How things stand there, and where do you think could really be the big breakthroughs that will come in here?
So I think from a policy perspective, we are right there in place. We have a open policy ecosystem where innovators are innovating. There were financial incentives. Talks are there for coming up for a new scheme. And then finally, the third pillar, where the defense is buying, there is a clear focus on buying IDDM capabilities, which is indigenously designed, developed and manufactured system. So ecosystem is there. In fact, if you see the Indian Armed Forces, especially the Indian Army, there is a flurry of procurement trials that have been initiated, contracts that have been initiated, through which we are very quickly ramping up our capacity. So the ecosystem is right in place, but of course there is a need for buying more.
And finally, how do you see this, let's say about 1 year, 2 years down the line in terms of technology? And where does India stand in terms of the tech arc?
So I think in the 2-year timeline, we will have moved up in 3 domains. Our procurement size and numbers would have increased, and we have now got a realization of buying every year and buying frequently. Second thing that we would have moved up is on the critical technology piece. Right now, people were not having capabilities for anti-jamming capability and all, but companies have been able to turn around in less than 3 months of time, where they have built all of this tech. And thirdly, the focus currently was slightly on the foreign and Indian technology partnerships, but that will move completely to an indigenous ecosystem. So these are the 3 dimensions in which in 2 years we'll become very self-sufficient in technology as well as in manufacturing capacity.
All right, let's leave it there. Mr. Shah, thanks much for speaking to me on Faultlines, representing the Drone Federation of India. Well, viewers, as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned, if one were to take off your blinkers and talk about where things stand right now, well, the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, has moved ahead from the traditional forms of warfare. He is now playing the hybrid warfare game against Europe. from drone attacks to cyber warfare. Europe needs to now prepare for a completely different type of response and also make sure that it responds well to the kind of threats that are coming in from Russia. One which will be difficult to identify, one which will be difficult to put the blame on Russia for, and one which will require greater amount of resource deployment to thwart exactly the kind of outcome that Vladimir Putin is wanting to do, which is why this new age of hybrid warfare is what will define the Russia-Ukraine war and its conclusion.